Welcome to September the 2021 meeting of Gaston County Board of Education. I am Jeff Ramsey, a member at large and chairman of the board. At this time, I would ask other members of the board to introduce themselves. Mr. Dedman.
Lee Dedman, Gastonia Township.
Justin Davis, South Point Township.
Steve Hall, Dallas Township.
Robbie Lovelace, Cherryville Township.
Dot Guthrie, Gastonia Township.
Dot Cherry, at-large member.
Kevin Collier, Riverbend Township.
Brett Moore, Crowder's Mountain Township.
On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome everyone to our meeting this afternoon. Look forward to a productive, informative meeting. Our first order of business is to have our prayer and pledge of allegiance, and I'll ask Dr. Booker to lead those.
Thank you. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer and nurture the bonds of our community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the students, staff, faculty, parents, and community of Gaston County. Continue to remind us that all we do here today and all that we accomplish is in your will and for your service to our community. We ask all of these things in your holy name. Yes. Amen. Amen. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Booker. Our next order of business is to adopt the agenda. You have a proposed agenda before you. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda? Mr. Dedman and Mr. Hall, second. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. The agenda is adopted. Our next order of business is to hear good news happening in our school. Dr. Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have 4 good news items to share tonight. First, I want to congratulate 2 of our high school seniors who have been chosen as semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Gwen Campo of Stuart W. Kramer High School and Travis Rainwater of Highland School of Technology are among the 16,000 students who were named National Merit semifinalists. Next spring, the National Merit Program will award 7,600 scholarships that will exceed $30 million in value. Over the past several years, we've had students in Gaston County win National Merit scholarships, and we wish Gwen and Travis the best of luck as they advance into the national competition. Many of you all who have participated in our North Carolina High School Athletic Association know that they recognize each year schools that have gone the entire season without having a student or coach ejected from a game. For this past academic year, we have 5 high schools that are being honored by the state for going ejection-free. Our state sportsmanship award winners for 2021 are Bessemer City High School, East Gaston High School, Forest View High School, Highland School of Technology, and South Point High School. This is a significant award, and as you can see, not every school is deemed worthy of this honor. We want to commend our players and coaches for their efforts and for displaying good sportsmanship, because that is an important part of the game. Win or lose, sportsmanship represents the quality of champions, and we congratulate these schools for their recognition. Hopefully you all saw the recent publication about our Cherryville Public Service Academy. 3 students, Jessica Johannesson, Trey Costner, and Ashlyn Beatty, graduated from Cherryville in May, and they quickly began jobs as emergency medical technicians with Gaston Emergency Medical Services. These 3 students completed the EMT course of study, which is part of our Public Service Academy at Cherryville High School. And with the training they received in the academy, they were ready to enter the workplace straight out of graduation. Last week, the graduates actually returned to Cherryville High School and did a presentation about what it's like to work as an EMT, and to also encourage their students of Cherryville that this is an exciting career path. All 3 are taking classes now at Gaston College, And we're very proud of what they've achieved, and we thank this board for supporting choice programs to allow that to happen and to change these students' lives. The school is one of 21 choices that we now offer in Gaston County, and we're excited about hearing other students and these great accomplishments. Our last good news is to talk about a new academy that you all supported, the Leadership Academy. We're partnering with Gardner-Webb University to develop a cohort of teachers from our school system who have demonstrated promise in leadership and allow them to further their career with Gaston County by securing a school administrator certificate. Together as a group, these teachers will complete the coursework over a 20-month period for a master's degree in school administration. We're excited about the 14 individuals that were selected, and we look forward to seeing these teachers grow and become future leaders in our school system. Mr. Chair, that is the good news for tonight, sir.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Booker. The next item on the agenda allows the opportunity for public expression. This is a time when the board will hear comments from our citizens about the matter of public concerns related to our school system. We do have several individuals who have signed up to be heard prior to the beginning of the meeting. Our board policy sets aside 30 minutes of our regular monthly meeting for citizens to address the board, and further offers the option for the board to consider hearing any other who have signed up at the conclusion of our regular meeting. Rather than asking our speakers to wait, I would entertain a motion to extend our time period for public expressions tonight's meeting from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to extend the time for public comment from 30 minutes to 60 minutes for this meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Ms. Lovelace, second by Mr. Cherry. Any discussion? Yes.
Do we need to amend our agenda to reflect this, or is this just within the minutes of the meeting?
I think the board can vote to extend that without amending the agenda.
Okay.
You ready? All in favor? And that's unanimous. At the conclusion of 60 minutes, we'll have a hard stop. Anyone not heard tonight will be asked to sign up for the next regular meeting. We do have several who signed up prior to the beginning of our meeting. We want to hear from as many as we can, so if our speakers will keep this in mind as we hear from each other, we limit your time to 3 minutes. Our clerk will be our timekeeper, and also, Ms. Clerk, will you set the time when we start to speak for an hour? Thank you. Before we hear from the public, let me outline the rules and procedures. For 1 hour, citizens wishing to make comments who have completed a request to speak form prior to the beginning of the meeting will recognize by the chair and then request to step to the microphone and make their comments. Citizens will state their name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Members of the board do not respond to public expressions during our public comments. Public expressions do not allow for comments on confidential personnel matters. Speakers who wish to give materials to the board will hand it to our clerk. The chair shall rule at all points of orders during public expression. So let's go to our first speaker, and that will be Crystal Bowie. Thank you.
I'm Crystal Bowie. I live in Pemberton, North Carolina, at 225 Pemberton Southwest. I'm here to speak to you guys about the next candidate. I am a physician here, as you guys recall, in family medicine. I also serve as the primary care service line medical director. I'm a proud mother of a South Point graduate and a former Guilford County teacher. I first want to thank you guys for making the courageous choice last month to have a mask mandate for 30 days. I know that it was difficult, and I know that there was a lot of pressure around that. I'd like to say that the work you have done and others in the community have done has really helped our community with COVID-19. While we're not where we want to be, we're still well above the state average of 11%. We're lower than the peak 18% that we were. And the masking in schools has worked. Unlike other counties where they are mask optional, we've had half the cases within our students in the county. And that's because of the choices that you all have made. I really hope that you understand that this pandemic is not over. We're still having significant deaths, we're having significant hospitalizations, and we are still well above both the state and national average with COVID. With all of that in mind, I ask you again to continue with the mask mandate until such time it is safe for children to go back to school without the mask. I believe you guys have shown that the masks work, they keep children in school, and they help keep children healthy. I appreciate your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Shania Lewinsky. He's got the list. Okay. Shauna Zerwinski.
Hi, my name is Shauna Serwinski, and I reside at 109 James Drive in Belmont, North Carolina. I'm here to ask all of you to vote to not mandate the mask for our children. I am here to be my daughter's voice and the voice of all children in our county and in our country. I'd like to take a minute and, as we all gather in this room, may we come together concerned only for the truth and nothing but the truth. No division, no hate, no right or wrong, no political sides, just together in faith. We owe it to God, our families, our children, our communities, to our country, the men and women in our military, and humanity. More importantly, we owe it to ourselves. Our souls are not for sale. If Mandy Cohen calls you from the Department of Health and she's the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, like she did for Union County, I hope you summon the courage. I hope all of you go and do your due diligence and your research on all of this. The mask is like a fence throwing sand through a fence. If you look at the back of a box of masks for sale, it will tell you that it does not protect you from a virus or COVID-19 on the box. So what is this all about? What is this all about? Because I'm the voice of my child, and all of you, we need you to also be their voices. If you were invited to Jesus' house for dinner, he will judge you, not me. But you're going to have to go through me if you continue this unlawful and unconstitutional mask, testing, treatment, and vaccine mandates. What I believe this to be is child sacrifice. Child trafficking is the 40,000-foot view. Over 1 million children a year are trafficked. So the globalists, the mask today, the testing tomorrow, the vaccine, which is not FDA approved. So I know that everybody here has these fancy titles and all that, but what gives me the right to be here is I gave birth to a life that's divinely inspired. And I am her voice today. You need to do your due diligence. I want you to write down U.S. patent 1110-7588. U.S. patent 1110-7588. All the other patents.
Thank you. Aaron Jordan.
On average, 369 kids die every year in the United States. We should do all we can to eliminate innocent lives being lost. My name is Aaron Jordan. I live at 441 Neal Road in Bessemer City. I have a daughter who is in her first year of kindergarten. Imagine my surprise getting an email saying only one parent can come to open house. I thought the school system wanted parents to be involved. Imagine my surprise to hear the students and staff would be required to wear a mask by a 6-3 vote only 2 weeks after previously when they voted 9-0 that there wouldn't be a mask mandate. We must eliminate the mask mandates due to masks not being effective, delays in academic and social milestones, and not using this measure for other diseases. First of all, we must eliminate the mandatory mask mandates because they simply are not effective. A November 2020 Danish study concluded that masks did not reduce the COVID-19 infection rate among wearers by more than 50% in the community, with modest infection rates. In Oregon, where there is a statewide mask mandate, infection rates have not flattened. In fact, hospitalizations are going up. Executive Director of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, Dr. Mike Ryan, stated, "There is no specific evidence to suggest that the wearing of masks by the mass population has any potential benefit." Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, WHO epidemiologist, goes on to say, "We do not recommend the use of wearing masks unless you yourself are sick. We already have guidelines to not send children to school if they are sick or have a fever. Why should we require them to wear a mask that is ineffective in combating COVID-19 infection rates but could harm them in other developmental aspects?" Secondly, we should not eliminate the mandatory mask mandates because they are impairing our students' learning both academically and socially. Kindergartners are learning letters and sight words. They are learning how long A's and short A's sound and how to say them. Many are visual learners. They need to see how these letters and words are sound out. Masks also muffle what teachers and fellow classmates are trying to say. This is a hindrance on their learning. Normally, if someone is listening and watching someone speak, they are hearing and reading lips. They take visual cues to fill the gaps of something they might not have heard clearly. Also, children are developing all through school. They begin to understand emotion and body language. We all remember the chart in our classes growing up that had different emotions shown on people's faces. Now we can't see any of those emotions. How do we socialize? How can we read kids who are going through difficult times if we can't see their faces? From May of 2020 to March of 2021, emergency room visits for suicides for girls ages 12 to 17 were up 50%. The increase in boys was up around 4%. What was going on in May of 2020? That was just a couple months after being isolated from classmates and friends. We are still being isolated by covering our faces and not being able to show our emotion and provide a nonverbal cry for help. Also, keeping track of students not having masks on is an additional requirement for our teachers. We constantly hear how much teachers shoot.
Thank you.
Mortality rate.
Monica Powell Cubitt. Okay. Rebecca LeClary. Haley Brazil.
Tanake ni ya Haley Brazil. So hello, my name is Haley Brazil. I live at 417 Bushmill Drive in Rock Hill. I spent the first 18 years of my life in Gaston County and graduated from East Gaston High School. East Gaston High School has a mascot as a Native American mascot. I just want to say I'm the second great-granddaughter, the fourth great-granddaughter, the ninth great-granddaughter, and the 10th great-granddaughter of a Catawba Nation chief. I'm the seventh great-granddaughter of Sally New River and the third great-granddaughter of Sarah Jane Ayers, which were prominent women in our matriarchal society. I want to say that the Native American mascots does not honor me or my people. It is offensive, and there is psychological proof that they are detrimental to not only Native American students, but non-Native American students. On the way here, I listened to a song called "What Made the Red Man Red" by Frank Wallen, and this is how the lyrics say. Tell me why you think the red man is red, stained with the blood from the land that you bled. Tell me why you think the red man is dead, with fake headdresses on your head. Tell me what you know about thousands of nations, displaced and confined to concentration camps called reservations. We died for the birth of your nation. Manifest destiny arrested what's best for me. They killed my nature, my culture. America made a mess of me. You inherited everything that we died for, and all we get is a mascot in our honor. I also want to go a little off topic here and talk about the COVID-19 regulations and protocols. A recent study was released that 1 in 500 Americans have died from COVID. When you break that standard down into race-based, Evidence: 1 in 480 Black Americans have died. 1 in every 390 Hispanic Americans have died. 1 in every 240 Native Americans have died of COVID-19. 1 in more than every 1 in 150 seniors aged 65 or older have died, including 1 in 35 people over 85. In my culture, it's a belief that children are sacred, and I do believe that it is your duty to protect them, not only from COVID, but also from demeaning stereotypes that is placed upon race-based people. I ask you to please do your research. Please read the statistics that have provided that it is detrimentally damaging to not only Native people, but non-Native youth. One of the leading causes for it being detrimental is the self-esteem. And as people have mentioned about suicide rates, self-esteem is one of the leading reasons for suicide rates. I ask you to please protect our children and to hold them as sacred people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ava Clarkson. Ava Clarkson.
Hi, my name is Ava C. My school and address are on the form, and I'm also a minor. I am here today to urge you to change this mascot at South Point High School, to add retiring the Red Raider to the voting list. This racist mascot has been in place for over 50 years. The fact that change hasn't happened yet is disgusting. It has come to my attention that many of you believe that retiring the Red Raider isn't your job. But if it's not your job, then whose job is it? The South Point principal won't listen. In fact, he just denied us protesting space at the home football games. Our only protest space is in front of the building, which is where all of the people aren't going to see us. They're going to be behind the building. We are running out of options. The Native American suicide rate is up 139%. Native Americans have the highest suicide rates out of any race. And after seeing what is happening with Line 3 and residential schools, it is very clear that Native Americans are struggling. How is it plausible that through their struggling, we simply ignore Native American tribal leaders and children who have come to these board meetings in the past to ask for change? You can say it isn't ignoring them, but to truly listen to what they have to say means opening up your mind and heart. It means not claiming that this issue is not up to the school board, because let me remind you, it is up to you. If we don't have the support we need from the principal, we should be receiving the support from you. Native youth needs your support. After seeing so much struggling, we must take action. You must take action. Please let this matter come to a vote. This is your problem too. Staying silent is quite literally ignoring Native voices. We are counting on you. Gaston County students are counting on you to be on the right side of history and to do the right thing. Protect Native mental and physical health. Keep masks. Coming from someone who wears a mask everywhere, despite vaccination, I have never gotten COVID throughout this entire pandemic. I am a Gaston County student, and I have no problem with wearing a mask. When I see other students wearing a mask, I feel safe, and I feel happier going to school. I have asthma. I understand it can be annoying having to wear cloth over your face, but it keeps people safe, and comfortability isn't as important as safety. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Retire the Red Raider. Keep masks.
Thank you. Jasmine Clarkson.
Can I start?
Yes.
My name is Jasmine Clarkson. I'm a minor, and my address is on the form, so please don't say my name out loud, my address out loud. For almost a year now, the Retire the Red Raider movement has been in full swing. People have volunteered and sacrificed huge amounts of their time, and yet their calls to action are met with stoic silence. The school board's response has been to ignore its citizens and wait precariously for nothing. The Gaston County School Board now has 3 choices to make in order to benefit its school system. The first decision is to vote to keep the Red Raider mascot. This would mean members of the board decided the mascot is inoffensive or too difficult to remove. Denying the removal of this mascot would say that Gaston County does not care about Indigenous stories and lives that have been affected because of this mascot. Indigenous students would feel alienated as their school mocks their race, and non-native students would assume that this blatant cultural misrepresentation is perfectly normal. Let me be clear. This mascot is offensive, and a change of mascot would be simple. The fact that red is used is abhorrent. Red, when used on an Indigenous person, refers to when colonists scalped Native people for sport. Is this the kind of violence that Gaston County can condone? It's not like the county itself is violence-free. Changing it would merely be a matter of changing the label and icon of the Red Raider. There are several alternatives, such as the Red Hawks, the Cardinals, or the Rams, that factor in South Point's red and white theme. Choosing to keep the mascot would mean refusing to recall America's history of mistreating Indigenous people. And I refuse to believe that Gaston County could stoop so low. Another decision would be to vote to remove the Red Raider mascot. South Point could acknowledge its past mistakes and aim for a better future. Indigenous students would not have to stare at a mockery of their race during games, and bad press over the mascot would cease. South Point would be heralded as a place that acknowledges its students from all backgrounds. Of course, the school board could stick their heads in the sand and spend another year or 10 or 50 hearing the public rally to remove this mascot. The cycle of bad press and, most significantly, the perpetuation of racist stereotypes would persist indefinitely. But I don't think you want to sit through all that. I think you want Gaston County students to get the best education and experience possible. I believe Gaston County can acknowledge its past mistakes in hopes for a better future. And that is why I urge you to vote to remove the mascot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dana Frady. Ryan Sims. Go ahead. State your name and address.
My name is Ryan Sims. My form is on the address. My address is on the form.
Mal Holly.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm here to speak about South Point High School's mascot. And truthfully, I'm here to just speak from the heart, because we have been coming to these school board meetings for about a year now. I think the first one we came to was July of 2020, and it is now September of 2021. We have been coming here for a very long time. We have had students of South Point High School come speak at these school board meetings, like me included. I'm a current student at South Point High School. We have had a myriad of other students at South Point High School come to speak too, who have personally said how the mascot has affected them and has made them feel like less of a person to just go to their own high school. We have had plenty of other Indigenous leaders come to these school board meetings and talk about how that mascot is not representing them in any way, shape, or form, and that it should be removed. We have had plenty other community members and supporters of our movement come to these school board meetings, sign petitions, and even attend protests, and nothing has been changed. We have done this for so long, and y'all already know this. The mascot is racist, the mascot is offensive, the mascot is dehumanizing. The mascot isn't right on any standpoint besides one of ignorance, but there is no ignorance here. We have been coming to these meetings for so long now. Y'all know everything I'm about to say that's coming out of my mouth, y'all know this. We have iterated this over and over and over. Y'all all know this. The only reason change hasn't happened is from the inaction to actually do something. It's all on you guys. We've laid it all out. We truly have. We have tried nearly everything in our power. And we're going to keep coming to these school board meetings. We're going to keep doing our thing. It's not going to stop. The mascot, it's not right. It's not okay. It's simply dehumanizing on a basic moral standpoint. The only reason it hasn't been changed is through inaction. And we're going to keep coming until action is made. And I hope somewhere in your hearts you can find the ability to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Lena Ware.
My name is Lena Ware, and my address is on the form. South Point's current mascot is the Red Raider. The definition of raider, according to Oxford Dictionary, is a person who attacks in order to steal. Before I continue with that, are you aware of the pain that Native people have suffered in the U.S. in the last few centuries? Native people have had their homes invaded and people killed. According to Business Insider, when Europeans came to this country, 90% of indigenous population died from disease and violence combined. Yet you call them Red Raiders when Europeans have stolen their land. Native people have had their children stolen from their homes and sent to residential schools, where they then had their native language stolen from them. Yet you call them Red Raiders? These residential schools happened in the U.S. and in Canada, and recently there was more than 1,000 bodies found in one of these residential schools. Some residential schools started as early as 1863 and closed in 1998, according to Live Science. That wasn't that long ago. And for hundreds of years, Native people were demonized and still are today. And here, for months, not just students of South Point, students from all across Gaston County and the Lumbee Tribal Committee have asked you to change the mascot, but you won't even acknowledge us. You seem to be so desperate to get rid of us that you would leak minors' addresses on a live stream. Why are you afraid of change? The mascot will eventually change. If not today, if not next month, or the month after, or even the month after that, the mascot will change. You are not stopping the change of South Point's mascot. You are simply slowing it down. Thank you for your time and hopefully for your consideration.
Thank you. Lisa Bagley.
I'm Lisa Rabaglia. I'm at 9414 Maltese Drive. On July 27, 2021, members Justin Davis and Steve Hall motioned to make mask wearing optional as of August 1st, and it passed unanimously. However, on August 16th, I received an email stating that masks would be required, quote, for people inside school buildings and central office buildings, including students, employees, parents, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status. Last time I checked, this is a free country. You made the right choice in July and the wrong one in August. One of the physicians who spoke at the August 16th meeting said, "This needs to be in place until COVID is gone. And as with any other virus, it is not going anywhere. It is going to stay here in its many variants, just as the flu has, and will remain a part of our daily life. Choice should always be available to every citizen of the United States, and that includes our children. I stand here to tell you that masks don't work outside of the healthcare setting. In schools, masks should be made optional and not mandatory. All ear loop, cloth, designer, and gator masks have the following disclaimer on their packaging: does not protect against coronavirus. I work for a company that provides PPE to hospitals and clinics across the entire East Coast of the United States, so I do know a thing or two about these products. Approved PPE items are only effective when donned by a healthcare worker in a healthcare setting, where removal, reuse, jostling of the mask, and general touching of the mask does not occur. These people are trained to don that PPE, children are not, and children do not possess the ability to keep their hands off of their faces. Most adults can't even do this. In essence, it renders the mask useless and in some circumstances more dangerous to wear. There are multiple studies proving that masks do not and have not had any effect on the growth and spread rates of coronavirus since March of 2020, and I have one of them here. I'm happy to give that over to the clerk. This is by Damian Guerrera and Daniel Guerrera from the University of Louisville, Kentucky. That can be found in the International Research Journal of Public Health. And we haven't even touched on how these masks can affect the disabled children, such as the hearing impaired who need to read lips. This school board, and by extension the schools governed by it, are participating in a massive form of Munchausen. You are telling children they are sick when they are not. You are pushing fear of germs upon them daily. You are turning them against their fellow students by shaming children who aren't wearing their masks properly, because that student supposedly puts other children in imminent danger. You will never be able to keep every child from becoming sick with something. TB, meningitis, flu, common cold, strep throat, chickenpox, those did not disappear. Children will get sick, And in most cases, they will be fine and have a stronger immune system because of it. I'm asking you to stop bending to fear, use common sense, and allow for choice and remove this mandate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lori Peabody. Lori Peabody.
My name is Lori Peabody. I live in Belmont, North Carolina. You have the street address on the form that I signed up to speak tonight. I'm here to speak for two primary reasons. One is I have some information that parents from out of district are being allowed to register their kids in Gaston County School without providing birth certificates, proof of residency, or transcripts from the schools they previously attended. As far as I know, a 30-day wait period is not allowed for this information. I have your policy here. I've read it. I cannot find where there's a wait period for this. I'm asking someone to please investigate the situation and find out what's going on, who's monitoring this, and who's making sure that these kids are attending school where they should be attending school. I do have information about one high school has over 100 students attending that, they were told to find seats for the students. They did not have this information. It's not like vaccination records. As far as I understand it, it needs to be provided upon registration. The second reason I'm here is about the mask mandate. My first question, and I know there's not going to be an answer, I would like to know who organized the group of pro-mask doctors wearing coats to the August 16th meeting. They're sitting here with their coats on, their mask on, and every single one of them, including a urologist, got up here and spoke in favor of mask mandates for children. That appeared to me to be completely organized. I do not think that was a grassroots movement, that doctors from all walks of life showed up here on the same night, all wearing their white coats and their masks. I think that gave cover for the school board to take another vote and to vote down the mask optional policy. That is all my opinion, but that is how the situation appears to me. Now, during that meeting, I stood out in the lobby. I heard a parent call kids without masks barefaced. That is despicable. That has no place in a civilized society. That is othering children, and I was appalled that anybody would think of a child as being barefaced. Secondly, I would like to point out, third, I guess, that European CDC is not masking children under the age of 12. I would like to know what they know that we don't know. There are private schools that are not masking their children. Believe me, if this policy were a catastrophe, we would hear about it on the news all day, every day. The last thing I need to get in, because I'm running out of time, here is a box of medical masks. It says right on the box, this mask does not eliminate the risk of contracting any disease or infection. Then I have another bag of masks. It says non-medical mask, and it says non-medical. These are the things that our children are wearing to school. I do not believe this is providing the protection anybody thinks it's providing. And I would like to know what the end game is and when the masking is going to stop. And I'm asking you to make it optional, please.
Thank you. Kelly Soley.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kelly Solly. I
Wait.
live in Belmont. My twins attend Page Primary. I hope that you will continue the current mask mandate. On Friday, Novant Health Hemby Children's Hospital Medical Director Dr. Eugene Daughtry reported that, quote, more than 25% of new COVID patients are children. In Gaston County, age 17 and under represent 14.69% of the new COVID cases. Emergency use applications are expected to be submitted for ages 5 to 12 in the next few weeks, and our children will hopefully be eligible to receive the vaccine by Halloween. While hopefully vaccines will be available for all soon, the reality is they are not available to all currently. Until everyone has the same ability to be vaccinated, we need to remain strong for our families and continue the course of mask wearing, along with the other measures to ensure that everyone is as safe as possible. We want our kids in school, and we commend you and everyone's attempt to make that a reality. But making masks optional at this point is not in line with any recommendations. During this pandemic, we have experienced tremendous loss. We have absent friends, families, teachers, doctors, and babies. Each has died a torturous death succumbing to this COVID virus. We have lost over 15,000 people in North Carolina alone due to this virus. My family experienced COVID firsthand in February. Seeing your 5-year-old struggle with fevers weeks long and symptoms while you yourself are also extremely ill is heart-wrenching. Having to take your child to get chest x-rays and seeing the evidence of COVID on his lungs due to the concerns for pediatric inflammatory disease is terrifying. All while you are also fighting a virus that has been deadly to so many, and this was before Delta. As a parent, one of our main responsibilities is to keep our kids safe, and if masks are made optional, I do not believe that policy aligns with the fundamental goal. The truth is that masks aren't 100%, but the bottom line is that masks are better than no masks. In light of everything we've learned about COVID, it is important to remember one point in particular. We can be contagious with the virus for up to 3 days before we have symptoms, over which time we can unwittingly make dozens of other people sick. COVID isn't just an illness, it is a wildfire. It makes us think we're well until suddenly we're not. Wearing a mask protects the people around you. In Gaston County, between students and employees, there are 33,579 people that your mandate affects. The HIMBY numbers, that would be 7,444 children that would be potentially exposed to COVID. John Hopkins reports the fatality rate of Gaston County is 1.46%.
Thank you. Amanda Merrick.
My name is Amanda Memrick. I live at 104 Timber Ridge Road in Belmont. I'm the mother of a second grader, and I want to say thank you for voting to start the school year off right by requiring that everyone wear a mask. I'm sure you received complaints, so I first wanted to say thank you for stepping up to make sure as many students stay in school as possible. Keeping kids healthy and in school is a tough task, given Gaston County sees an average of 213 cases a day. Since the beginning of the pandemic, at least 1 in 6 residents have been infected. When community numbers are this high, they trickle down to the schools. We ended the first week of school with 112 positive cases. The next week, numbers were down to 67. After the Labor Day holiday, cases rose to 151. And last week, that number was 153 positive cases of COVID. Just think what our numbers would look like if you weren't wearing a mask. Actually, we don't have to imagine. All we have to do is look toward Union County Schools, a school district close in size and distance, but with much different results. In Union County, after 3 weeks of school, more than 7,000 students were quarantined, close to 1/5 of the student body. As of Friday, the district reported 1,659 students were isolated or excluded, and 319 tested positive for COVID. I don't want that to happen here. I don't want Gaston County schools to bear a scarlet letter of shame as one of just a few school districts where school board members chose politics over precautions. We are better than that. I want our school system recognized for its 21 magnet school programs, for its career and technical education focus, and for its low school crime rate. We want to be known for our positive achievements, not our COVID outbreaks. When there is inclement weather, school is canceled if a bus carrying students to Cherryville might drive through unsafe ice or snow. Roads might be fine in Gastonia or Belmont, but calling off in-person learning keeps all students safe at home. Requiring a mask is no different. You are doing it to keep everyone safe. Not requiring a mask is like driving a busload of students over an icy road. Thank you.
Betsy Dellinger.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Dellinger. I live at 300 Carolina Drive in Cherryville. I don't really want to talk about masks. I just want to talk about like excessive absences due to the contact tracing. So when I looked back at our student code of conduct, I mean, I think we're like on the same page. Excessive absences up until the point of COVID was considered like 10 was a very big problem and you had to start getting doctor's notes. And then at 12, you had to have like this formal hearing at the end of the year to see if you could pass. But now we're sending kids home for 14 days at a time, 14 days at a time. Healthy, well children, they're fine. The problem is I understand that you're following the rules that are set forth in the North Carolina Toolkit. I get it. Like, that's your rules. You have to follow them. But where our children are being exposed is at lunch. Like, they have to take their mask off to eat, and they need more than 14 minutes to eat. But surely we can find creative ways to spread them out, use the gyms, use the media centers, use the classrooms where their teachers are in planning periods, outside. I don't care where you use. Art rooms, anywhere where there's not like major academic instruction going on, because those children that are going home for 14 days at a time are missing tons of in-class instruction. And when we look at our truancy policy, it's so tight because we so believe in in-class instruction. And what happens down the road if we miss in-class instruction? Children fall behind, they become delinquent, they drop out, and they end up jobless. I mean, the whole thing's a snowball. So I just feel like there's some way that we can work out a plan that they can eat safely and not be sent home just because one person in the lunchroom tests positive. The other thing is that in the toolkit, there's testing made for free where we could test students every day that have been exposed but have no symptoms. And according to the toolkit, it's at no cost to the school or the school district. It's funded by DHHS. And it says that the rapid antigen testing works to prevent in-school transmission while minimizing in-person learning time lost. So this is something that was on the front page of the Times today. It's called a test to stay method. So you keep testing the kids that maybe have been exposed, but they're not showing any symptoms, and test them, but let them stay in school so they can learn. Just also off the side, if we're going to keep like sending kids home forever, I feel like at some point we've got to get some kind of streaming in place so that the kids that are sent home for infectious disease don't miss 14 days of class instruction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Turner.
Good evening. My name is Karen Turner, and my address is 158 Davis Road in Bessemer City. I am the mother of a 7th grader at Bessemer City Middle School. The end of the 2019-2020 school year and the entire 2020-2021 school year were incredibly difficult for students, teachers, and administration. There were so many changes that affected everyone. Everyone's mental health suffered, especially the students. Elementary students, especially the younger ones, had a difficult time with online learning. Middle and high school students missed important rites of passages such as school dances, sports, band, prom, and the seniors experienced a very pared down graduation without the pomp and circumstance they expected. I know in our family, our daughter's mental health suffered from being isolated from her peers and the social aspect that school brings. We chose to have her attend the virtual academy last year. We did not make that decision lightly. My husband and I take care of his elderly parents, one of whom has congestive heart failure. Also, at the beginning of the last school year, I was also traveling to Gibsonville, North Carolina on the weekends to take care of my elderly mother who had fallen and broken her arm, and my stepfather, who has Parkinson's disease. My husband and I talked about it quite at length and decided to enroll our daughter in the Gaston Virtual Academy because I and my husband could handle if we were to get COVID and transmit it to our parents, but we did not want to burden our daughter with that. As I said before, our daughter's mental health did not fare well during the school year. She became moodier and withdrawn. Our AIG student struggled with online learning, and in February, she posted a goodbye letter on her profile on a game she plays. Luckily, a friend saw this post and reported it to a teacher, and we were able to get her the help she needed. She is now attending school in person and is vaccinated. She is much happier going to school face to face. Gaston County schools cannot afford to move back towards having so many cases that schools must go virtual. We owe it to our children to do everything we can to protect them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lucas Buchanan.
Good evening. My name is Luke Buchanan. I'm a 16-year resident of Gastonia. Thank you all for your service to our community. My children attend Gaston County schools. You made a decision 1 month ago to reinstate the mask mandate at a critical moment before Gaston County went back to class. What happened? I can't speak for everyone, but my children are in school. They are learning, enjoying, socializing with other children and teachers alike, and life is just about back to what we all in this room really want, which is normal. Again, I'm not speaking for everyone here, but my children don't really complain about the masking when it's weighed against the pros of masking, which affords them attendance, friends, and physical participation. No one likes masks. But the golden rule is still the rule, and they don't want to infect anyone nor be infected. By removing the main defense of masks, just one child could spread the virus to an entire class of children. This is why the Academy of American Pediatrics still currently recommends masks for unvaccinated children in schools. It's true that children are at a minimal risk for severe COVID, yet simultaneously, children can be hospitalized for COVID. What happens when we unmask and the need for hospital rooms and ventilators increases? Today, Caramont relayed that there are 87 patients in the hospital with COVID, 13 of which are on a respirator. The vast majority are unvaccinated. The numbers were just worse as of Saturday. That's good news for all of us. It is improving. We not only risk educational disruption, but we risk increasing the burden on hospitals. What we have is a once in every 100 years pandemic, a hyper-contagious virus that is spread through respiration. We also have a group in our community that does not have the safeguard of a vaccine, those being children under 12. Masks block the respiration and spreading of the virus much better than nothing, for sure, and is the best defense for those without the vaccine option. You made the right decision before, and the results have shown uninterrupted schooling. We now also know that school scores declined dramatically during the virtual school and cohort system from school attendance last year. So in review, children under 12 do not have an option to vaccinate. This is a highly transmissible respiratory virus. We are packing large clusters of unvaccinated children into areas with very little ventilation. We employed a mask mandate to defend this group, and the outcome has been a strong return to in-person schooling, which we now know through testing and data is the best form of schooling. If we unmask the unvaccinated, we will overcrowd the hospitals. What we're doing is buying time for allow children to soon have the same defense that we enjoy as adults, vaccination. Just today, the Pfizer vaccine for the study group of children 5 to 11 showed tremendous efficacy and is in the FDA's hands. I think we're going to be there soon, but keep masking. We know what you've done is working. What's the alternative? To unmask? Thank you for your time.
Amanda Placey West.
Hi.
Hey.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Placey West. I live in Gastonia, right off of Hoffman Road. My address is on the form there for you. I've been an ICU and a CCU nurse for 18 years now. I work for two of the largest hospital systems in our state. I work inside the hospital, but I also work on an ICU level transport team that moves patients from smaller hospitals, to larger hospitals when they need a higher acuity of care. As you can imagine, I've cared for many COVID patients during this pandemic, and I have had more patients die this year than I have seen in my 18 years of nursing. In the beginning, it was mainly older people. That is not the case any longer. The people dying now are in many cases the parents of these school-age children that we're talking about here today. In my ICU that I work with full-time, there's 4 orphans this week of school-age children who no longer have their parents. So it's not just about the children, it's about the community as a whole. Children may get the virus and be fine, but their 40-year-old firefighter dad or their 40-year-old teacher mom or me, we may not be fine. And there are children dying if you look at the statistics across the country too. It's not as prevalent, but children do die. I transport children on ventilators with this disease. So I'm here asking you to keep the mask mandate in place until we are in a better place. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. The resources are scarce. There's not enough ECMO machines to go around. There's not enough ICU beds to go around. We have chairs in the traffic circle outside of the ER that I take patients to all the time because there's not room for everyone in the waiting room. Many people seem to be concerned about their own personal choices and freedoms. Personal liberty doesn't mean anything if we use it to destroy the public good or affect the overall community in a negative way. We must balance freedom with responsibility. That is part of the contract that you agree to as an American citizen. Our freedoms don't come free, they are paid for by our responsibilities. This is why I don't shoot my gun in my front yard, or drive drunk, or start big bonfires in the middle of a drought. Our responsibility to keep our neighbors safe should always outweigh our decisions to do whatever we want. People have gotten overconfident about their research and their experiences with masks. I assure you, if I sneeze 2 feet from you, with or without a mask, you're going to see the difference.
Thank you. Dr. Andrew Herman.
Thank you. Andrew Herman, I was asked to come here. My address probably on there as Atrium Health. I'm representing Atrium Health and Levine Children's Hospital. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Levine Children's Hospital. I wanted to say a few things. First of all, thank you for letting me be here. As a physician, my responsibility is to save lives and to help people. And regardless of what your opinion or what you think, I'm here to care for you. And the second thing is with that mission to use data and to use research to really understand what the truth is. And it's really all about the truth. What we do know currently is through the course of COVID, and this is recent data, through the course of COVID, it's been 15.5% of the COVID cases are kids, and that's the longitudinal data. Currently, with the Delta variant, that's increased to 28.9% of all COVID cases are children. So put that in perspective. That's just since this summer. Furthermore, if we think about children, recent data shows that of all the tested cases that are positive, so these are all the positive tested cases, not all the cases out there. All the tested cases that are positive, 43% of the children that are positive are asymptomatic. So that's almost half of all the kids that are positive are roaming around, they never know it. And so that creates a problem. We know that kids aren't going to get as sick as adults, but it's also our biggest population of people who are unvaccinated at the moment. That's likely to change. So, kids are less sick, and we have had a resurgence of inpatients of children at Levine Children's Hospital and throughout the system. Since the beginning of COVID, the numbers are higher than a full day of Levine Children's Hospital inpatients, but not as big as our adult colleagues. Our adult colleagues at CMC, as well as the other hospitals, are completely full and closed to admissions and are boarding many, many, many patients in the emergency department. What I worry about, so certainly masks do protect against COVID. They don't eliminate the risk. Much like wearing your seatbelt does not eliminate your risk of dying in a car accident. By the way, the risk of dying of COVID is higher than risk of dying in a car accident. It doesn't eliminate that. Wearing a bulletproof vest will not eliminate your risk of dying from a gunshot wound, yet we wear our seatbelts and we wear our bulletproof vests. But it has been shown up to about a 77% reduction in risk of getting COVID. So what I worry about is yes, the health of our kids, but the health of their parents and their grandparents who they bring it home to unknowingly. So thank you.
Rick Gass.
My name is Rick Gass. I live in Mount Holly. You have my address there. Chairman Ransby, do you have that study for me that I asked for in email? I asked for an email study. I guess you didn't get the email or you don't get the study. So I deal in facts. I don't deal in fiction. Let's start with facts. 2008, NIH did a study on the Spanish flu, 1918. They found out that 90% of the people that died from bronchopneumonia, not the flu. They concluded it was from mask. Guess who did the study? Dr. Fauci. Okay, let's talk COVID deaths for kids, 0 to 17. There's been 42 deaths in the United States. But there's been 1,431 deaths from bronchopneumonia, once again from wearing masks. Okay? CDC has one case of flu for entire 2021 season for COVID. One case for the flu. Average 421 cases a year. What happened? The flu gone? Is that what it is? The flu's gone now? Okay. Yeah, right. May 13th, Biden said no mask. May 14th, the two largest teachers associations in the United States sent letters to the CDC demanding kids put in masks. So what happened on 15 May? CDC said kids get masks again. No science behind it, straight politics. Okay? I understand that people are concerned about their kids. I do understand that. But you want to put your kids in masks, be my guest. But my grandkids do not like the mask on their face. They're having a hard time learning with them on. Did I interrupt you?
Quiet.
Okay, Sweden, Finland, both countries. One had masks, one didn't. No discernible difference in their kids for COVID. Florida, same thing. They did a test after the 2021 school year in Florida. The counties that required masks and the counties that didn't have masks, the ones that required masks had more sick days from their kids. Okay, I do research. I look at facts. It's affecting our kids. I understand there's a lot of paranoia going on right now, a lot of fear-mongering by the government. Okay, I deal in facts. These are the numbers. Bronchopneumonia has killed 4 times the amount of kids. Why? From wearing masks. Plain and simple. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Katie Mercury.
Hello, my name is Katie McCurry, and I'm a physician assistant at South Point Family Practice in Belmont. I also reside in Belmont, and my address is on the form. I'm also a mother to 3-year-old twins and a 6-year-old that attends kindergarten at Page Primary. Just the other day, my 6-year-old asked, "Mom, when's this virus going away?" I answered, "Son, I don't know. I wish I did." He responded, "Well, can you ask Alexa?" While I would love to have an answer as to when this virus will be over, I would think our focus at this time has to be how to live with the virus and come up with strategies to mitigate risk and help reduce the spread of COVID-19, particularly in those who are not vaccinated or not eligible to receive a vaccine. Just as we look to experts to navigate issues such as safe sleep and car seat safety, it should be no different with COVID-19. The American Academy of Pediatrics strongly advocates that all policy considerations for school plans start with the goal of keeping kids in school and physically present at school. By mandating masking, we're able to keep kids in school. If masks are being worn appropriately and consistently, children who are not vaccinated after a close contact in a classroom do not need to quarantine. This is based on updated CDC guidance, and studies have shown extremely low risk of COVID-19 transmission in classroom settings when face masks are used appropriately by all parties. At this point in the pandemic, we all, healthcare professionals, public officials, teachers, parents, are very tired. We must not let our emotional burnout with COVID-19 allow us to make decisions that are not in the best interest for our children and community. Until we have signals to support reducing masking, such as decreased community transmission and decreased hospitalizations, we have the obligation to follow the guidance of the experts. It's our responsibility as caring adults to protect our children. The evidence is overwhelmingly in favor of utilizing masks to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our board clerk, this is our last person to speak tonight, Chase Fuller.
Good evening. My name is Chase Fuller. I live in Gaston. My address is on the form. I am also a PA at South Point Family Practice in Belmont and the mother of a kindergartner and 3rd grader at Best. I am here to ask that you make school masks mandatory for students and staff still. Masks are effective. Masks help keep our kids in school. Masks help to limit quarantine. COVID is still a very real problem in our community. Since the last board meeting in August, Gaston County's COVID cases have increased from 60 to 90 cases per day per 100,000. For reference, the North Carolina case rate is 66 and the U.S. is at 46. Our county is nearly twice that of the national case rate. If masking was a good idea for Gaston County last month, it's a great idea now. Gaston County's conversion rate on positive tests is over 17%. For reference, it was 17 to 18% throughout January, when we were able to keep elementary schools open. If masking was appropriate in January, it's appropriate now. WA Best has had 6 confirmed cases of COVID among the students and employees since the start of the school year. Considering all of the approximate 600 students are unvaccinated, that's encouraging that what we're doing right now is allowing our students to stay in school. Kids learn best when they're in school. Virtual learning is harder on the teachers who have to find new ways to present information and get the necessary feedback on how students are doing. It's harder on the students to stay focused and engaged, and it's certainly harder on parents who may have to juggle a job, a home-based learning classroom, possibly caring for other family members as well, all while navigating technical issues with devices or internet connectivity. Putting aside any health concerns from COVID for a second, I want to talk about quarantine. Quarantine is hard on families. Trying to keep kids separated is difficult, if not impossible, given the ages of kids. With exposure alone, that's 10 to 14 days of a student and possibly one adult staying home from work and school. With a COVID infection, that's at least 10 days of staying home for the sick student, plus an additional 10 to 14 days of quarantine for an unvaccinated adult if isolation from the child isn't possible. That's at least 20 days of staying out of work for adults. We know that masks cut down on the spread of disease, and if we lower the number of people who get infected, we can lower the number of people who need to quarantine. Throughout the pandemic, my family has gone through about 5 quarantines for my preschool-age kids who were maskless at their daycare, but I have yet to have to quarantine for my child who's been at Best. Masks provide some protection to the wearer, but they primarily serve as a source control. They are most effective if everyone wears one. Kids are highly influenced by their teachers and peers, and if everyone's required to wear one, compliance will be less of a concern. Until all school-age students are eligible for a vaccine, I want to encourage the school board to make masks mandatory for all students and staff. I'm asking you as a community-based medical provider who has seen our medical facilities stretched thin. Protecting our kids in schools will help keep parents at their jobs and keep the community running. I'm asking you as a parent. I want my kids to go to school and I want them to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude our public expression. I want to thank everyone for their comments, continued concern for Gaston County Schools. Although the board does not typically respond during the period for public comment, we want to hear from the public and direct our staff to work on the issues that need to be addressed. Thank you again for your comments. The next item on the agenda is approval and a correction of minutes. You have the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Mr. Moore would make a motion to have a second. Ms. Guthrie, any discussion? All in favor? The minutes are approved. All right. Next item on the agenda, allow the report for our superintendent COVID-19 update.
Members of the board, we have Steve Eaton with us from Gaston County Department of Health and Human Services to provide an update from the health department's perspective. But before we get to Mr. Eaton's presentation, I want to point out that we have finished our first official month of school. During the opening weeks of school, I had the opportunity to visit classrooms across the district and to see our students and teachers in action. On the screen are some pictures that take you inside our schools. Students and teachers were on task. They were engaged in activities and teaching and learning was taking place. Also had the opportunity to see our custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, support staff, and many others doing the part that they play to make school happen every day. It was no easy task. Today is our 20th day of school, and it has been a time filled with many opportunities along with a fair share of challenges as schools continue to navigate this pandemic. But it didn't just start 20 days ago. For our team, it started on March of 2020. It has been a long year and a half for all of Gaston County's faculty. But you know what? They are still showing up. They are going above expectations to mitigate the effects of COVID-19. They are putting in long, hard days each and every day. And they press on despite whatever obstacles this pandemic may present. I want to make sure they know that we know these days are long. Going back to 5 days, with the majority of our students back for in-school instruction, has been a transition. And we know that's tiring. We know that there are many days that they get to the end of the day and say, can I make it till tomorrow? And we know it can be frustrating. But we also know that we are fortunate to have the most dedicated and resilient people. When folks talk about our healthcare community and frontline workers, I quickly say, thank a teacher. They're on the front lines. So I want to thank them for this first month and what they have done to help our families, often at the cost of their own families. In recognition of this effort, I would like to make a recommendation to the Board of Education that Friday, October the 8th, and Wednesday, November 24th, which were shown on our current calendar as optional teacher work days, become remote work days. We would like to designate those dates for our employees to work from home and to have an opportunity to do their things. We know there will be some sporting events that they'll still have to cover, but for the day, let them have that day. Everyone wants things back to normal. But unfortunately, they are not normal right now. We still have a virus to deal with. And that virus is in our schools and it's in our community. But we have the people in the right place to deliver education to our students. And I want to thank them for what they do. thank you for allowing me to share that. I'd like to recognize our health director, Mr. Steve Eaton.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Booker. Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, members of the school board, and Dr. Booker. Thank you for having me again this evening. Okay, next slide, please. Like previous presentations, I'll begin tonight with an overview of our county's COVID key metrics that we as public health and the healthcare community review in order to assess the current and future trends of the pandemic. When you look at the metrics for this week, ending today, you'll see that 4 of the 5 metrics that we are showing show that we may be plateauing or leveling. While this is certainly good news, after many, many weeks of being in the red, we know we can either take a turn for the better or turn for the worse at this point. Much of it does and will be determined by how well we vaccinate our community. So let's again look at these metrics individually. So when we look at the percentage of ED visits with influenza-like illness, we use this surveillance data to look at those who present at the emergency department with flu-like symptoms because the symptoms of COVID and flu are so very similar. This metric gets a yellow because, as you will see, it's beginning to trend sharply downwards. That's certainly a good sign. When we look at COVID testing in the emergency department, this metric looks at the number of patients in the ED that actually get tested for COVID. While remaining fairly stable across much of the pandemic, this metric gets a red because it has increased from 35% of patients being tested in the ED for COVID to 39%. When we look at the daily new cases of COVID, you'll see the rapid and concerning acceleration of new cases since the last time I spoke with you on August 18. At that point, we were averaging nearly 140 new positives per day. Now we're averaging 210 daily new cases. This metric gets a yellow because we've seen a slight downward bend in the red 7-day rolling average. Our current positivity rate for Gaston County is 17.1%, with Gaston County falling in the highest category in North Carolina. Again, a high positivity rate shows a greater penetration of the virus in our community, along with greater community transmission. This metric gets a yellow because it's remained fairly level, but again, it's still far too high. This is concerning when you look at hospitalizations. Whenever we see a sustained high number of new positives and a high positivity rate, we know the hospitalizations shortly thereafter will increase, and that's what we're seeing here. While we surpassed the highest number of Gaston County citizens hospitalized, we're just beginning to see this bend beginning to trend downward. This metric gets a yellow, but again, is far too high. This slide shows you the overlay of these 3 areas. Of great concern is the number of deaths that we are currently seeing. Just over this past weekend, we unfortunately lost 16 Gaston County citizens to the COVID virus, and we lost 63 since the last time we met in August last month. So let's now look at school age data in Gaston County. Again, just as a reminder, this data regarding school age children covers all Gaston County children and is not specific only to Gaston County schools, Gaston County school system, but rather includes public, private, and charter. So this slide shows you the number of weekly positive cases in Gaston County for the 4 to 18-year-old population. And again, this is including public, private, and charter schools. I've intentionally placed some markers from the last presentations that I provided you on July 27th and August 16th. As you can see in the school age population, the number of daily new positives remains very high. This weekly average of daily new pediatric cases is more than 2 times what it was when we met on July 27th. This is an encouraging sign that we're seeing a decrease from last week, but again, remains extremely high. When comparing July to August, you can see Gaston County has experienced an increase in new positives, an increase in new school-age positives, and the percent of school-age children as a percentage of total cases is also increasing dramatically. This is the red line that you'll see jumping sharply upward. In July, pediatric cases made up 15% of all new cases, and currently pediatric cases make up 25% of our new cases here in Gaston County. With regards to student exposures in quarantine, again, this is for all students in Gaston County. You'll see that there were 81 the week of August 27th, 1,301 the week of September 3rd, and 1,507 the week ending September 10th. When you compare this with school systems with no indoor mask mandate, this is significantly less. The areas in school populations where most exposures have been known to occur are while eating, athletic events that include practices, games, locker rooms, and training efforts. When we look at faculty and staff cases and exposures, again, you'll see staff positives, and you also see exposures all on this same slide. In green is the number of positive cases, and in gray, you'll see those who were exposed and had to quarantine. And again, this is for faculty and staff. Gaston County, as mentioned earlier, continues to lag significantly behind the state average for vaccination among the 12 to 17-year-old population. In North Carolina, 38% of 12 to 17-year-olds are fully vaccinated, compared to 25% in Gaston County. Vaccines continue to be widely available and easily accessible throughout the county in nearly all pharmacies, physicians' offices, and at the health department Monday through Friday with no appointment necessary. We often get asked the question about hospitalizations for the pediatric population. When we look at the number of children hospitalized due to COVID, you'll see that Gaston County has had a few children hospitalized most months dating back to June 2020, with the highest month being February 2021 with 7. Currently in September, we've had 3 hospitalized pediatric patients for Gaston County. So I wanted to compare where we were in last August as to where we are now. Last year, at this time, we had a daily new positives of 44 compared to 210 today. On average last year at this time, we had 5 youth ages 4 to 18 testing positive for COVID. Today, we're seeing on average 49 testing positive. Our positivity rate last year was nearly 8%. Now it's over 17%. And the average COVID census at the hospital last year was 29, and now it's 117. But I do want to point out what is working. I think it's important for us to recognize the efforts that are going on between public health and the school system and our leadership teams. So together and consistently, we combine our strengths and expertise and resources to address the pandemic. Our approach to this, to COVID-19 has remained consistent with the school system on how we address any other communicable disease outbreak, whether that's pertussis, norovirus, or any foodborne outbreaks, to name a few. We're also together sharing data and the science to inform our decision-making. And our leadership teams speak frankly, honestly, and openly daily to address opportunities and challenges. And this is what, quite honestly, brought us out of, or I should say, into school from the fall, as well as into school classrooms after Christmas. Together, we have the same goal, which is to keep kids and staff safe and healthy in schools each and every day. And finally, I wanted to wrap up with quarantine and quarantine options. The CDC does offer options to reduce the time folks and students are in quarantine. One option is a 10-day quarantine. In this scenario, if somebody was exposed to a known positive and was asymptomatic without symptoms, they could return to the classroom 10 days as long as they did not have any symptoms. A second option that's provided, and all of this is also found within the North Carolina Safe Schools Toolkit, is a 7-day quarantine. In this scenario, an individual student or staff member could quarantine for 5 days, and on the 7th day, if they received a PCR or an antigen test lab confirmed, they could return to the classroom, assuming again that they have no symptoms and continue and tested negative. The third option is to keep the continued quarantine option that's in place now, which is a 14-day quarantine. But I do want to note that each and every one of these options does require that masking be in place so that individuals can keep the spread of the virus in place. So with that, I'll now turn it back over to Dr. Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Eden, for your partnership with our staff and keeping our children safe. The next item is one that will be on the agenda for every regular meeting for the duration of this school year. By a new North Carolina law, all Board of Education shall vote on a face covering policy every month and either maintain the current policy or amend it. Our current policy is that masks are required in Gaston County public schools by all students, staff, and visitors of all campuses. This policy is keeping with the recommendation of the state and local health department and the Strong School North Carolina Public Health Toolkit. Based on the prior agenda item on COVID-19 update, do I hear a motion for how the board should proceed? Yes,
Sir.
Mr. Devon.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue to be mandatory for all students to wear a mask, staff and visitors in all of our Gaston County schools, buildings and schools.
Okay.
That's indoors, by the way, indoors.
Indoors, okay. Second, Ms. Guthrie. Any discussions? Yes, Mr. Collier.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to probably repeat myself from before that the rules around quarantine really put me in a position to do what I think is best to keep children in school, which is, to me, the most critical thing that we can do. We've heard some people talk upon that specifically. And the current quarantine rules pretty much push us to make the decision to mask in order to give our children the best opportunity to stay in school with in-person instruction. That said, I'm excited to hear that they're working towards changing some things and there's options now about quarantine, because I don't understand the logic, as just my opinion, of some of the quarantine issues and some of the things, but I do like hearing that we're able to reduce those things, and I hope that our county can find the means to reduce the quarantine time, because I don't think anybody on this board will disagree that our children need to be in front of teachers for in-person instruction. So that alone is the single most important reason for me to support keeping the mask in for this next period of time until our next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lovelace?
Mr. Chairman, I have two questions for Mr. Eaton.
Oh.
If I may ask, is he
Okay.
still with us?
Is he still with us? Yes.
Okay, Mr. Eaton, based on your report, the majority of students in quarantine are due to lunchtime exposure as well as athletics. Do you or your department have the data reflecting the percentage of quarantine students who actually test positive once COVID tested on or after day 5 of exposure? That's my first question.
I don't believe we have that information. It's not something that we track. No, ma'am.
Could that be tracked?
I'm looking to my communicable disease nurse.
Could the school nurses actually be able to tell us that, because students have to show a negative test in order to come back to school?
Right. So, and that's exactly what she just said, is we could partner with the school nurses to look at that and see if that would be a possibility.
Okay, and my next statement is, some teachers have had more students out with COVID than are reflected on the health department's weekly report. And I do understand this report is 1 week delayed. I understand that. Do you think that this is possibly due to the fact that some students are being tested outside of Gaston County and test results are not being sent to Gaston County in a timely fashion?
No, we receive the schools report, but we also go into the North Carolina school database that's run by through our communicable disease department. So all positive tests flow through that database, and that's where we pull that information from.
Okay, thank you.
I know we made a motion, but I.
No, you're
I wanna
fine.
Make a comment or statement.
Yes, you can. We're in discussion, Ms. Scott.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank those that spoke this evening for the mandate and those for choice. But I also want to say that I am happy to hear that the superintendent actually did recognize the faculty, administration, and staff who have worked diligently this year through such challenging times. And as a former educator myself, I realize how important it is to be a part of a team. It's okay when someone asks me or would ask me, can you cover my duty? I have a family emergency and I need to leave school early. That was understood, and of course, we work that way in the schools. But now our faculty, our teachers are having to work twice and 3 times as hard. And, you know, we talked about the mask this evening, but what about our teachers? They need to know that we are going to support them in every way that we can. So I am happy to know that October 8th and November 24th will be made available to them so that their students can have that online learning. Our teachers, and this is just my opinion, I am not speaking for anyone else on this dais. I am speaking from my own experience as an educator. I know that teamwork is important. And I know how important it is to have our administrators make certain that everything in the school's environment is covered, which means now we have a challenge with teachers, a challenge with subs, a challenge with bus drivers. As a matter of fact, that's universal. I heard the other day that the Massachusetts had National Guards driving buses. And I know that our bus drivers and our janitorial staff, all of those folk that make up a school, that's very important. But when we look back at our teachers, each and every month we come and we hear the good news. We hear what they have accomplished through the teaching and learning in the classroom. They show us that they want to produce well-rounded students. They show us that they are interested in teaching content. We have heard data literacy tonight, and we know how important it is for us to support what they are doing, how they are doing. Now they are relying on us to help them stay safe. I know that they are doing dual duties in their schools. Teach, especially high school. Teaching content. The bell rings. Class monitor. Making certain that the bathrooms are covered. Hall duty. And preparing for the next class, as well as showing accountability to the standards that are being taught. So I am happy to hear this evening that we can give back to them. It's just that important. I've been there. I've experienced how important it is to be a part of a team, yet receive the support from the school board and administration. So, teachers, just bear with us a little while longer. The data will get better. we will see improvements. We know that we have accomplished educators in our schools. So just bear with us a little while longer, and we're going to show you through our actions that we appreciate you as much as you appreciate those students in your classroom. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful comments and recognizing our staff and teacher, Ms. Guthrie. Any other comments, discussion before I ask for the vote? I'll just reinstate the motion. Oh, Steve, I'm sorry. Mr. Hall.
I have a question for Mr. Eaton. Are you authorized to mandate masks?
To mandate masks? No, sir.
You're not?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So,
one other thing, do you have a preference for mask?
Do I have a
like N95 or?
So the strong
when
schools.
When this thing first started, everybody were buying those masks like crazy. Are you aware of that mask?
I'm sorry, you keep breaking up. Say that again. Am I aware of the N95 mask?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm aware of those.
Does it give you more protection than what I'm wearing?
So different types of masks provide different layers of protection, and so the North Carolina Strong Schools Toolkit recommends a double-layered mask or a surgical mask.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other discussion and comments? I'll just, go over the motion again. Masks are required in Gaston County Public Schools by all students, staff, and visitors indoors on all of our campuses. All in favor? All opposed? It's a 6-3, Ms. Clerk. Thank you. This item will be reconsidered at our next board meeting in accordance with North Carolina Session Law 2021-130, Senate Bill 654. The next item on the agenda is a report for curriculum and instruction. Ms. Dot Guthrie is the chair of that committee, and other members of the committees are Justin Davis, Steve Hall, and Robbie Lovelace. Ms. Guthrie.
Ms. Lovelace will be presenting our report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
The Gaston County Schools Board of Education Curriculum and Instruction Committee met on September the 9th, 2021. Members present were Robbie Lovelace, Steve Hall, Justin Davis, and Dot Cherry. The meeting was called to order at 12:02 p.m. Staff provided updates on Read to Achieve and Gaston Blended. All kindergarten teachers used the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory to assess students entering their first year of school-aged instruction. A new component of Read to Achieve is Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, known as LETTERS, and this training will begin January 2022. The Gaston Blended format prioritizes mastery standards and proficiency scales for every teacher in Gaston County schools. Teachers continue to plan and personalize instruction for students. Gaston Blended will launch the Parent Academy website to support families and the community on topics related to academics. The committee was given information about Drive Education System. Drive Education will be included on tonight's agenda for consent. The Department for Federal Programs recommends contracting with Drive Education as an intervention support for Warlick Academy through the Innovative Partnership Grant. The meeting adjourned at 1:20 p.m. Mr. Chair, before we continue, Superintendent Booker has made a recommendation that the optional workdays on Friday, October the 8th, and Wednesday, November the 24th, be changed to remote workdays for all Gaston County Schools employees. The students are already out on these days. At this time, I would like to make the motion to designate both October 8th and November 24th to remote work days for all Gaston County School employees.
Thank you. And I have a motion from Ms. Lovelace and a second by Mr. Hall. Oh, any discussion? Y'all would like to have any comments for the, yes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, after Ms. Guthrie's eloquent comments about the teachers just a few minutes ago, I think this is just a small thing we can do to say thank you and help in the smallest way with what our educators are doing out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Cherry first.
Let's go this time. I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Collier and Ms. Guthrie has said. I mean, the things that our teachers and all of our school staff and really all of our employees have stepped up and done since COVID has started has been remarkable and amazing. Things that we never thought that they would be doing, or they thought that they would be doing. And we couldn't have done what we've done so far and had our children in our buildings and learning without them doing what they're doing. I know I'm not as eloquent as Ms. Guthrie or Mr. Collier, but truly, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Guthrie?
I just wanted to ask, since those students and faculty will be out of school, will the schools be cleaned? Or we may need to have some thorough cleaning.
One of the great
I know
things,
one is
and I appreciate
the day
that,
before.
we are ongoing cleaning. And that's one of the great things that we have done with the additional funds that have come to us through the pandemic relief. And we continue to do deep cleanings on any of these severe incidents, as well as the ongoing cleaning it has been. Just like everybody else, we are challenged with labor. We are down probably 25% of our support staff, be it cafeteria, be it custodial. I've been in schools where I see administrators dumping trash during lunches to keep things moving. So it's all hands on deck, but we will continue to always be diligent and try and do that. What I want to make sure, and I appreciate your support of this, what I want is our school staff, from the custodian to the individual answering phones to our payroll clerks, to have a day to breathe. There'll be some folks that'll have to work because we're a big operation and we'll have to, but they'll get that time at some other point to acknowledge what they have been doing for the last period of time.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? And that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Woodard, thank you for your leadership, that we can give back just a little to our staff and teachers and everything, because we know they're still going the extra mile. So thanks again. The next item on the agenda, report from the Operation Committee, and Chairman is Lee Dedman. The other members are Dot Cherry, Kevin Collier, and Brent Moore. Mr. Dedman?
And Ms. Cherry will be delivering our minutes.
All right.
Okay, let me deliver it. We met on Monday, September 13th at 4 o'clock in the central office boardroom. The committee members that were present were Chairman Dedman, Kevin Collier, myself, and Brent Moore. The agenda and discussion included the following. Our Associate Superintendent, Chief Financial Officer Gary Hoskins provided an update on the request from the Gaston Aquatic Center. The group had approached Gaston County Schools requesting considerations to purchase a portion of the property adjacent to the Lakewood Road near Stuart Cramer High School campus. They're working on a more formal proposal for the board's consideration. Mr. Hoskins also provided an update on the residential property, located at 425 South Ridge Street in Dallas, which has been declared surplus by the board. This item will be presented to the Gaston County Board of Commissioners to exercise their right of first refusal before the property can be sold. Chris Hall, project manager, updated us on the School Business System Modernization, or SBSM, project. Additional system testing continues at this time with HR and payroll components. HR and payroll systems are now scheduled to go live on January 1, we hope. Right, Gary? All classified non-exempt employees will move from a monthly payroll to a bi-weekly payroll beginning January 2022. Due to the project timeline extension, Cherry Road has presented us with change order that could be offset by adjusting the Phase 2 scope of work. And that has nothing to do with my family. Let me go ahead and say it. I don't know who Cherry Road is. HR Director, go ahead and preface that now. HR Director Joey Clinton reported that we have 38 teacher vacancies. 7 of those are CTE vacancies at middle and high schools, and 6 exceptional children vacancies. Due to the enrollment numbers at the elementary schools, we were allotted 7 more positions, however. Teachers and support staff with current CDLs are encouraged to drive buses because we have a bus shortage there as well. And as Ms. Guthrie alluded to, this is not only a county-wide problem, it's a state problem, and it's a national problem with shortages in teachers and other personnel. Any overtime earned as a result of driving a bus will be paid to the employee rather than earned as comp time. There are 22 student teachers working in the district this fall semester, so that's good news. Since August, there have been 101 positive COVID cases, 188 quarantine, and 3 clusters within the district. Aaron Slutsky, our Chief Technology Officer, informed us that there have been over 9,000 Chromebooks set up, inventoried, and distributed through the district so that we can still maintain our 1-to-1 ratio of Chromebooks to students. Executive Director of Auxiliary Services Morgan Houchard shared the following information. We have 60 vacancies in school nutrition, plus an addition 12 employees that are in COVID protocols. With the new freezer and dry storage space at the central kitchen, we have been able to manage and mitigate the food shortage and delivery problems that we have had in the past. There are many shortages and price increases on meats, paper products, and canned foods, but we're working through them, and I think anybody that goes to the grocery store, they've seen that in their personal shopping. Transportation. We now have the 4-camera system in all of our buses. We have continued to support and utilize the 2-tier model for bus transportation for students, and it's working pretty well. However, we're 14 bus drivers short, which negatively impacts certain bus routes. Facilities, our work orders are still being completed on a timely fashion, and we have 577 open work orders now in process, so they're staying very, very busy. We continue to work with school leadership for athletic events to ensure that they're proper metal detecting and bag searches with all the aspects of our school safety. Also, the team is assisting with security fencing and life safety improvements throughout the district. Information on current capital projects were shared with the committee. Easements for North Belmont Elementary and Belmont Middle were reviewed and discussed. And Mr. Hoskin also discussed local maintenance and repair projects and salary adjustments. The timeline for selection of an architect for the new Greer Middle School was explained, and requests for qualifications from architects are due by 2 p.m. on September the 24th, 2021. After reviewing potential candidates for the projects, we plan to recommend an architect to the board on November 15th of this year. A draft of potential bond projects was shared, and then the committee agreed to recommend that the old Belmont Middle School property be declared as surplus. And this item will be on our consent agenda tonight. And finally, approval for the purchase of student Chromebooks, teacher Chromebooks, and commercial dehumidifiers were also recommended for approval from the board to appear on the consent agenda. And the next meeting for this committee will be October 4th at 4 p.m. in this boardroom. And Mr. Chair, that's our report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cherry, and thank you for both committees for the work that you've done on behalf of our students, staff, and parents. Next line item is our Gaston County Schools Testing Center. This is the information item, and Dr. Jill Payne.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, Superintendent Booker, and members of the board. I want to thank you for allowing me the time tonight to share with you some information regarding our Gaston County COVID-19 Testing Center. Gaston County Schools and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services have collaborated to open a testing center for our students and staffs. Our goal is to keep our staff and our students safe, healthy, and in the classrooms where they're receiving the high-quality instruction provided by our teachers. In addition to the current multi-layered approaches we are using in our schools to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, we are excited to be able to provide our students and staff the opportunity for diagnostic testing. Our testing center will offer voluntary testing for any employee or student who is exposed to someone with COVID-19. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has allocated funds for public schools who open a testing center for students and their employees. We are excited to announce that Gaston County Schools will receive $3.4 million to be able to open our testing center. Later this evening, on the consent agenda, the item nurses is for your review and approval. When the center opens, our registered nurses will be managing the center, and then our certified nurses assistants will be performing the test, they will obtain consent first. Then they will perform the test, record and report the results, and then communicate those results with our families and our staff, providing them guidance on isolation and quarantining. Our clinic will be located at the former Records Building, which is at the corner of Clay Street and Garrison Boulevard, which is right behind York Chester Middle School. Our nurses will be providing exposed students and employees the option for free antigen testing Mondays through Fridays from 9 until 5. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to providing our staff and our students an additional layer of support to mitigate risk for COVID-19.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. And Ms. Cherry has a question.
Now, Dr. Payne, this is all voluntary, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms.
And-
Guthrie?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, that's fine. No.
I wanted to ask, first of all, I think that it's an excellent idea, and it's going to certainly enhance how we serve our student and faculty population. Now, we know that we have registered nurses in our schools, but will we have nurses to man that center in addition to the nurses that are in the schools?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
That's a part of the consent agenda item tonight.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions for her? Yes, Ms. Lovelace.
Dr. Payne, if students are sent home due to quarantine, are they going to be told to be tested on day 5 or after?
Yes, ma'am. That's the protocol in the North Carolina Schools Toolkit. Day 5, 6, or 7, they can be tested.
Okay, and how long will it take to get these results back?
The antigen test is a quick, rapid test. So that'll be a quick test.
And if it's negative, they can then return to school?
On day 8, yes, ma'am.
On day 8?
Yes, ma'am.
But will they be able to go into the classroom?
Ms. Lovelace, that's a great question, and when you listen to what Mr. Eaton just shared from the health department's perspective, he is interpreting the Strong Tools Kit, and it's gonna, it appears we're gonna get some additional latitude where we're having to do that, and that's a great move by him. He talked with us earlier about it, so we'll have to work together, staff, to get there. And we are still, another great question I know you all asking us, well, when will this be open? We are anxious to get this open, but we have to work through the state, and you can imagine there are 115 school districts in the state of North Carolina. We don't know how many applied to get into the opportunity to do this. We do know that the large systems have all asked for this, so any company would be facing trouble getting this rolled out. So we hope that we can get it in the month of October up and running.
Mr. Davis?
When our schools inform students and parents of a quarantine, will they also be providing them information with the testing facility and where it will be and when they need to go do it? That way they're equipped
Yes,
at
sir.
the very beginning.
And I want to thank our operations team has worked to try and find a central location. And so on Garrison Avenue, we have a building that housed the records for a long time, and they are doing some cleanup to that so that we can establish the site there, which would be as central a location as we could create in the county.
Mr. Moore.
We're not requiring those kids to be tested, correct?
No, sir.
Okay.
This is purely voluntary
Okay.
by the family if they would like to use that opportunity.
Thank you.
And there's no cost to the family.
Any other questions? Mr. Hall?
Is the toolkit mandated?
The toolkit is guidance from the Department of Health and Human Services for you as a board on how they recommend us to operate schools. And there are options within there, and you all have exercised that option of masking.
But it's the guidance, it's not mandated.
We can watch how the discussion around Union County has been.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you, Dr. Payne.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is budget update 2021-2022. This is the information item. Gary Hoskins.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. I'm here to provide an update on the 2021-2022 budget. We currently do not have an approved comprehensive state budget for 2021 and 22 yet. The state continues to operate under the recurring budget from 2018-2019. That's the last year that they had actually approved a comprehensive budget, plus a series of mini budgets that they have passed over the past several years. Gaston County Schools is operating under the interim budget that this board passed in July of this year, and that is 80% of the previous year's budget. That is what our interim budget is. So while the state's not yet had a comprehensive budget for the coming year or for the current year, there are some positive signs that they will have a budget this year. The General Assembly Budget Conference Committee continues to work behind the scenes. They have agreed on numbers for taxes and capital projects. They're still working on salary and benefits. What else? COVID money and policy issues. And the goal is for the General Assembly to send a budget to the governor this week, and that will be sent to the governor in private. You know, in the past, they've sort of put it out in the press and sort of tried to negotiate in the press, but hopefully it sounds like that this will be a behind-the-scenes true negotiation between the General Assembly and the governor. Speaker Moore has stated that he believes the budget bill can be finalized in the first or second week of October. So when we have some final budget numbers, we will present those to you, and we will also present to you a budget resolution for 2021-22 as soon as we can. Mr. Chairman, I'll open it up for questions.
Doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right, the next two items are together, local assessment schedule of 2021. This is information item, North Carolina Accountability Model results. Rebecca Powers and Michael Fowles.
Good evening, Chairman Ramsey, Vice Chair Cherry, members of the board, and Superintendent Booker. I would like to invite our Director of Testing, Michael Fowles, to share the local assessment calendar with you.
Good evening. The vast majority of our testing that takes place in the district is required by the state, but there is a small amount of our testing that is administered as locally decided assessments. Each district is required to annually report to the State Board of Education on all local assessments and the calendar for administering these assessments. This report must be submitted to the State Board of Education by October 1st. A summary of our local assessment calendar has been provided for your information. We will continue to fully utilize the NC check-ins that are made available from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, which have enabled us to eliminate additional benchmarks for reading and math at grades 3 through 8. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is all that I have to share.
Thank you.
Next, I'll be sharing our North Carolina Accountability Model preliminary results. In 2017-18, the new accountability model was voted into law. With that came some changes. Before proceeding, let's review the North Carolina Accountability Model just for a few minutes. The North Carolina Accountability Model includes school performance grades for each school and long-term goals. Each school performance grades are still an A through F grading model for schools based on achievement and growth measures. For the 2021 school year, Senate Bill 654 was signed into law and states that the State Board of Education shall not calculate achievement, growth, and performance scores, nor display performance scores, growth, designations, and letter grades for schools for the 2021-2022 school year based on the data from the 2020-2021 school year. But it shall display a brief explanation that achievement, growth, and performance scores and letter grades were not calculated and assigned for the 21-22 school year because assessment data was heavily impacted during the 2021 school year. However, student proficiency for the 21 school year was calculated and reported for instructional planning only. State tests were administered in the following subject areas to determine proficiency: reading and math for grades 3 through 8, science for grades 5 and 8, Math 1, Math 3, Biology, and English 2 for high schools. Furthermore, the graduation rate continues to be calculated and reported as well. Therefore, tonight I would like to share our results with you. Statewide, student proficiency rates on end-of-year and end-of-course tests were lower for all tested grade levels and subject areas when compared to data from the 18-19 school year. End-of-year tests were not administered for the 19-20 school year after the pandemic forced the closure of our school buildings and halted in-person instruction in March of 2020. When reviewing the following charts, it is very important to note that the performance of the 2 years should not be used for comparison purposes because of several factors, including differences in schedules and modes of instruction during the 2020-2021 school year, the recalculation of performance standards for reading tests, and not providing a retest option in reading because of the recalculation. Also, we had a varied testing window when schools could administer the test to our students. Because of these factors, it is not possible to have an apples-to-apples comparison of those proficiency rates from the 2018-19 school year to the 2020-2021 school year. First, we have reading performance for grades 3 through 8. We have reflected the WAVE assessments during the 1920 by indicating that line in between the 2 years. The blue bar represents 2018-19, and the gray represents this past school year. Grade levels are across the bottom, with our district being first, and then grades 3 through 8. Next, we have math for our elementary and middle schools. Again, the district is first, and then grade levels at the bottom. And the last indicator for our elementary and middle schools is science for grades 5 and 8. For our high schools, we have our end-of-course assessments: Math 1, Math 3, Biology, and English 2. Next, we have the 4-year cohort graduation rate. 10 years ago, our graduation rate was at 70%. Fast forward a little bit to 2016-17, which we had a peak of 88.3. However, there has been a change in how the state calculates cohort graduation rate that occurred during the 2018-19 school year. This resulted in a lower rate for many schools and districts throughout our state. The changes affect how some students can be excluded from calculations. Previously, students who were not part of the school's initial cohort were excluded from calculations upon enrollment in the school if they were not on track for graduating in 4 years. As a result of this change, we saw a decrease in our graduation rate to 84.8 for the 2018-19 school year. In 2019-20, in response to the pandemic, the state reduced the amount of credits a student needs to graduate from 28 to 22. Therefore, we saw an increase in our graduation rate, which was 88%. In 2020-21, the state did return to the pre-pandemic calculations and total credit requirements students need to graduate. Our graduation rate for the 2020-2021 school year is 86.5%. Despite the decrease in rate for many schools, there were 6 schools with a rate greater than 90%. Ashbrook, Gaston Early College, Cherryville, Highland, South Point, and Gaston Virtual Academy. Additionally, a few of our schools had significant increases in their graduation rate in comparison to last year. I would like to note that North Gaston had the most significant increase, 3.4 points, when compared to last year. Over a 3-year period, North Gaston's graduation rate has risen 6.1 points, going from 82.6% in 2019 to currently 88.7%. Cherryville and South Point also saw an increase in the graduation rate over the past 3 years. Historically, ACT and WorkKeys performance have previously been 2 separate indicators. Beginning with 2017-18, the data from these assessments is combined into one indicator to measure the percentage of high school seniors meeting college or career readiness benchmark measures. This indicator uses a combination of ACT results from grade 11 and WorkKeys results from grade 12. In 2018-19, 59.1% of our seniors met the college or career readiness benchmark measures. In 2020-2021, we had 57.9% of seniors meet the college or career readiness benchmark measuring using ACT or WorkKeys. Our next indicator is math course rigor. Math course rigor measures the percentage of our seniors who graduate with credit for the NC Math 3 course. Although this is another area where we have experienced a change in the rules for calculation during the 2018-19 school year, 100%, all of our high schools, had 90% or more of their students graduate with this credit for NC Math 3. 7 of our schools had at least 95% of their students graduate with this credit. They are Ashbrook, Bessemer City, Gaston Early College, East Gaston, Forest View, Highland, and South Point. At all grade spans, there's an indicator that is still fairly new to us for the school performance grades, and that is our English Learners Progress Measure. Students identified as English learners are students whose family indicated that they speak a language other than English on the home language survey when enrolling with our district, and they have qualified for services via the WAPT or WIDA language screener. The WAPT or WIDA screener is the test used in North Carolina for initial identification and placement of students identified as English learners. Public school units must identify these students in need of language assistance services within 30 calendar days of their enrollment. This indicator is used to measure the progress our English learners are making towards attaining the English language and exiting our ESL services. In 2017-18, 8 of our schools were identified in having this indicator as part of their accountability model. In 2018-19, 12 of our schools had this indicator. For the 2021 school year, we now have 21 out of 55 of our schools who are identified as having this indicator as part of their performance reporting. However, due to Senate Bill 654, the calculation of this indicator was excluded from reporting for this school year. The last component of the model is our long-term goals. Long-term goals are a required part of our state plan under ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. If you're familiar with the adequate yearly progress targets of students' achievement progression that we had under No Child Left Behind, our long-term goals that we have now under the new model look very similar. Long-term goals are established 10-year goals for improving student performance using EOGs and EOCs that also serve to close the achievement gap between the subgroups of students. The 10-year goal is divided to equal a small improvement goal each year, and these are goals called yearly measures of interim progress. One of the major differences for calculation of long-term goals versus proficiency calculations used for our school performance grades is that these calculations only use the achievement levels 4 and 5. Due to the waiver of accountability requirements and reporting, the long-term goals for the 2020-2021 school year are remaining the same as the goals for the 2018-19 school year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Any comments, questions? Ms. Guthrie?
Mr. Chair, I asked the superintendent if we had the leader in me long enough at North Gaston to show benefits, and he said no. But I want to congratulate the faculty, staff at North Gaston for your increase in the graduation rate. And I know that you have that choice program, The Leader in Me, and it does work. And I like the way that it starts at the elementary schools, and it's vertical. It moves on up to the high school. And I just want to mention the 7 habits. 1, be proactive. You're in charge. The students are in charge. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Have a plan. Put first things first. Habit 3, work first, then play. Habit 4, think win-win. Everyone can win. 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen before you talk. Maybe I should keep that one. Habit 6, synergize. Together is better. And habit 7, sharpen the saw. Balance feels best. Evidently, there at North Gaston, they are sharpening the saw. I like what I heard this evening, and I want to congratulate North Gaston's faculty and staff for their work. And thank you for that report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Any other comments, questions for Ms. Powers? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are several items on the consent agenda tonight. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right, Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Cherry. Any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? And that's unanimous. That brings us to time of the meeting to hear from our superintendent, Dr. Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I do have several items. First, you noticed a number of ladies out in red tonight. I wanted to recognize Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and particularly Miss Lillian Williams, who is a great friend of the school system and has offered me great guidance. So I appreciate that.
You're too kind.
Thank you.
Members, you all received a lot of information this past week about school safety. It was a challenging week in Gaston County schools, and I want to thank all of our school administrators for their attention to school safety and security, not only last week, but throughout the year. I want to thank our school resource officers and the role that they play, and all of our law enforcement partners for the attention and commitment they show to Gaston County schools being held up as one of the safest operating school systems in North Carolina. Last week, we had messages and information circulating on social media, the majority of it unfounded. We all know that spreading rumors on social media disrupts the school environment. It takes focus away from the classroom, academics, teaching, and learning. It is important that we reiterate that we take all social messages seriously. Law enforcement takes it seriously. And even when it's a case of stirring up an existing rumor mill more than anything else, we make sure that they're all investigated. That is why we encourage our parents to have discussions with their children about the responsible use of social media. Students and others have to be responsible and use good judgment when it comes to what they post on social media. We want to assure everyone, particularly our parents, that we take this responsibility serious. And we will let our community know when we think there is a serious, credible issue. And we'll continue to do all that we can to provide a safe school environment for our students and employees. And I want to thank numerous administrators who were up late nights, early mornings, because when those events occur, and we begin working with law enforcement, it may go into 2 or 3 o'clock as we are trying to research the validity of those issues. Next, I want to remind the board that the School Board Association's annual conference will be November 11th through the 13th in Greensboro. It is an in-person meeting, and the clerk has the information if you would like to attend. On September 28th, which is next Tuesday, we are looking forward to recognizing our new Gaston Early College of Medical Sciences with the ribbon cutting and open house celebration. As you all know, it's our second early college, and it focuses on preparing students for careers in healthcare and the medical fields. The event is 2 p.m. outside the Comer Engineering Technology Building on Gaston College campus in Dallas at 2 p.m. next Tuesday, the 28th. There'll be tours of the new classrooms and how the school is functioning so our students can be greeted. Also, we do have Parent Conference Teacher Day on October 7th, and those will be virtual, just as we had done last year, and they will go on throughout the week, but that is the targeted date for them to be completed by. So parents, please work with your child's school to schedule a conference and get that valuable feedback from your teacher on your students' progress. And as you all know, Friday, October 8th will now be a remote work day, and we really appreciate that very much. And Mr. Chair, we had listed on the agenda to ask for a closed session. We do not need to have that closed session tonight, so that concludes my comments.
Well, and you stole my thunder because I was going to recognize our fellow board member Lee Dedman on September 14th turned 65, and I was going to deliver a birthday present and tell him we weren't going to have a closed session. But that's good news. So thank you for all your time and attention we work to do and what is best for our students, teachers, and community. We look forward to our next regular meeting, which is currently scheduled for October 18th, 2021. So I'll ask for adjournment. Mr. Dedman.
I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
He speaks.
Thank you. We're adjourned.